So not only are we talking about the energy of the earth, we are also talking about the energy of the environment. And the energy of the environment is known as cosmology. This is true of every culture in the world. It's not only special to India. Every culture has cosmology. Whether you look at Greek cosmology or Roman cosmology, or you look at the tribal cosmology of the South Americans, Central Americans, or Australia, all of them have specific meanings given to directions. Of course, the rising sun in the east and the setting sun in the west becomes the basis. Everything else has its own location in a cyclical manner. So you have Surya on the east and Varuna on the west. You have Kubera on the north, Yama in the south. These are your cardinal directions. Then what are known as ordinal directions? You have Ishana in the northeast, Pitru in the southwest. Pitru is also known as Niruti. Then you have Vayu in the northwest and Agni in the southeast. And these have certain meanings. Surya usually denotes intelligence, learning, being a good student, waking up to your potential. Agni usually means your own vital energies, your capacity to digest, your capacity to learn, your capacity to act. All that becomes Agni, your spiritual fire, and so on. Yama, often mistaken to be only the Lord of Death, he is also Dharmaraja. So learning about life and death and awakening to your spiritual potential is all Yama. Then southwest, which is Pitristhana, is your ancestral wisdom. Then Varuna is, as you all know, the Lord of the ocean. And in fact, Varuna is one of the earliest Vedic gods. Those of you who know your prayers, your Vedic chanting, Indra and Varuna are constantly spoken about. So instead of Surya, there is also Indra in the east. Then you have Vayu. Vayu, as you all know, mobile, capable of being intellectually very, very agile, capable of being very creative. Then Kubera in the north. Kubera is both the Lord of wealth and the Lord of herbs. So healing, wealth creation, prosperity, all that is in the north. Ishana is the Lord of the potable water. So that becomes the water that is capable of nurturing you, healing you, etc. Okay. And the center is Brahmasthana. Next one. So then, after you have created a plot, all this comes into activity only when you create a plot. You can't generally say everywhere in the world, India has this. No, you have to create a limit. Once you've created a limit or a plot or a boundary, then you can create segments, concentric spaces. Central point is known as Brahma Sthana or a Brahma Bindu. Okay. Then the space around the Brahma Bindu is known as Brahma Pada. Pada is a module. And the module around it is the Daivika Pada. Then it is Manusha Pada. And then finally it is called a Paisacha Pada. So each of them has a specific location, specific meaning in the built form. It is said that the center is more potent. It has more energy. And the outer is the least energy. So it is the most comfortable for everyday living. So bedrooms, toilets, kitchens, storerooms are all recommended on the outer, and the inner, you're supposed to keep it open as a courtyard, so that there is exchange between the earth and the heavens. Okay. Next one. Can you move to the next one, Ma? Huh. There is also a lot of negativity floating around about slopes. The assumption being that everything that slopes towards the east and the southeast is good. Everything that slopes in the other ways is bad for you. This is a very wrong assumption. Because obviously, geographically, you cannot have identical slopes everywhere in the world, right? Even in a mountain range, there will be eastern slope, western slope, southern slope, and a northern slope. And then there will also be non-cardinal slopes, right? So does it mean that people didn't build in those areas? Not true at all. Every slope of every mountain, there are villages, there are settlements, and it has been there for thousands of years. Okay. Basically, each one has a meaning. What do you see when you wake up? If you're sloping it down to the east, you will watch the sunrise. If you're sloping it down to the west, you can watch the sunset. Each of them will have a specific meaning. Each direction has a specific meaning. Okay. So they have specific names given to them. Susthana, Sulabha, Vastuvara, and Satpada. Let's look at each one of them, their meanings. Next one. Yeah. Susthana is where the north is low and southwest, south, and southeast are high. The texts have generally said this is very good for spiritual work. And this has been assumed as the standard for everybody. You must have north low, and people will come and tell you that raise the southwest side artificially so that you have a feeling of north being low. When land has a particular slope, it takes thousands, sometimes millions of years for the geology to create a certain formation, right? And that formation has something to do with not only the quality of the soil, but also the water table. Where is the water deepest? Where is it shallowest? What is the nature of the stone or rock or sand that is already in existence in that particular land? Okay. So this particular one, where naturally the land is sloping towards the north, where there is a sense of higher ground in the southwest, south, and southeast. There is a sensing of the energies, the northern energies being available to you completely. You are in a state of your Pitra, Yama, and Agni in the higher state, and you have the northern energies at the lowest state, which means it will come to you. You can acquire it. Okay. Sulabha is the one where east is the lowest. And this has been recommended for people who were in power and authority, which means kings, which means chieftains. So when a settlement, today only we are talking about individual buildings. Traditionally, they only spoke about settlements, which means that there is a village or a city or a town that has been created, and usually on the banks of a river, any water body, potable water body, right? In that land, which has been chosen for the settlement, there will be many slopes, because large tracts of land will not be standard. It will not be completely flat. There will be various slopes. So then you set out a Vaastu Purusha Mandala there, and then you say, this is the location for the leaders and the kings. This is the location for the people who are doing spiritual work. This is the location for people who are working with their hands, agriculture. This is the one where they are doing manufacturing. Okay. So one of them is spiritual work. The second one is authority. Third, next slide. Vastuvara and Satpada, there is commercial activity. So marketplace. South is very low. North, northwest, northeast is at a higher state. Okay. Then Satpada is the service industry, which is most of us today. You can be a medical person, you can be a builder, you can be a teacher. We are all in the service industry. There, the West is the low part. Okay. In a settlement, these would be the ways in which all sides, all slopes will be utilized by a particular type of people. Unfortunately, this has been associated with the idea of jadi. It is not like that. It is your activity. Because if you have industry and you have commercial activity, there will be a lot of effluent that is pushed out. So where will you store the effluent? Where will you have water? In a settlement, you had to figure out all this. Okay. Next one. Right. So now I want to move, after having told you a little bit about energies, Vastupurusha Mandala, etc. I want you to understand also sculpture plays a very important role in Vastu Shilpa Shastra. Sculpture with all its symbolism, particularly in a temple structure. Okay. And the temple structure is known as Devalaya, and the residential architecture is known as Manushyalaya. So the Devalaya is the most dominant in a settlement. Specific locations are given for different kinds of gods. Where can you have Shiva temple? Where can you have a Vishnu temple? Where can you have a Devi temple? Where can you have a Ganesha temple? And so on. All these were specified. And it is once again based on symbolism. Right? The form, Shiva temple can face any direction. Devi can also face any direction. Vishnu usually faces to the east. Ganesha usually faces to the east. So usually certain forms of Devi, particularly the Ugra Devi and Shiva temples, were kept on the outside, outer perimeter of a settlement, because they not only served as divinities, they also served as protectors. They protected you from your enemies. Okay. So if you take the symbolism of the cosmic dancer with his beautifully proportioned body, every aspect of the body of the Lord is speaking about something. The movement of the Vastra flying shows you the speed with which he is spinning. He is creating with his upper left hand, he is creating with the fire, he is creating all form. All creation is coming out of that. The right hand, Damaru, he is creating all sound, language, everything is coming from that. The other two front arms, Abhaya Varadahasta. He's saying, I will protect you. And then one foot resting on the Apasmara or Muyalagan, which is ignorance. He's holding human ignorance, avidya, under control, and he's dancing with abandon. And this dance is supposed to be the origin of life. It is also said, Pradosha Kala, which is why Pradosha Kala is so important in Shiva temples. This dance is happening within our own hearts. So in the Pradosha time, going to a Shiva temple and standing there absolutely silently in the time of Pradosha, which is neither dark nor light, dusk time, this dance, this inner dance can be experienced. Okay, next one. So this is another fabulous Nataraja. Those of you who have had the good fortune of seeing, of being there. It's very close to Koneri Rajapuram, is very close to Kumbakonam. It was the tallest Nataraja till date, until now. Recently, they have sent this 18-foot Nataraja to Delhi. And so he's no longer the tallest. This is about 7.5 feet, including the pedestal. The amount of metal that went into it, and we're talking about in the 10th century AD, to make something of this scale, this size, the size of the kiln, the amount of material needed, amount of wax needed, metal needed, because this is Panchaloha, which means all 5 elements have to come into it. The amount of coal, amount of firewood, just amazing that they could achieve something like this. And look at this, the sweetness of the face. Not only had they created something that is metallurgically amazing at that period of time, the aesthetics of it. Look at that smile, look at that proportion. Okay, the next one. Yeah. Then the famous Tanjavur Brihadishwara temple. Once again, a masterpiece, astonishing. The scale, the quality of the aesthetics, the stability. You go there and you're just awed by it. There's the sense of the most, one of the most important rasa is adbhuta. You go there and you sense this adbhuta within yourself. How could they have achieved this? So many centuries ago. Even today, to be able to build this with all contemporary machinery is an impossible task. And they're supposed to have done it in 25 years. It's the most astonishing work of art. Okay. So, and the perfection of the 9, every element, if you take a look at it in detail, every element in the temple structure is actually complete. It represents the whole. The part is the whole. So this ability, it's an algorithm. This ability to create a part which represents the whole is philosophically the concept of Jivatma and Paramatma. And those of you who know the verse Anor Aniyam Mahator Mahiyam, which means the smallest, I live in that, and the largest, I inhabit that. And the largest and the smallest are in relationship with each other. So you go back to Vastu and Vaastu. Okay. So this rhythmic structure, the traditional Vishwakarma, the Stapati, would relate it to music. The analogy used is music. So if you know your Carnatic music, there are the 2 chakras, the one which is with the Pratimadhyamam and the other one which is with the Shuddha Madhyamam. So the Shuddha Madhyama, the distance between the notes is very almost equal. Pratimadhyama, it shifts. So it is said that temples which have a straight profile are Shuddha Madhyama, and the temples which have a curved profile are Pratimadhyama. Okay, next one. Then, of course, the other astonishing example, which is Ellora, Kailasanatha in Ellora, where not only the rhythm of part to the whole, but they have carved it from top down. They haven't built it bottom up. They are not individual pieces that have been assembled. With perfect proportion and aesthetic sensibility, they have carved from the top downward. It is said this also was done in 40 years. One doesn't know. That seems to be the data available to us. Probably longer, because it would have been handed over father to son and so on. It would have taken at least 2-3 generations of people who could have carved this. So not only did they have a perfection of form and spatial alignment, they understood their material. Not a single crack. Painstakingly, if you remove parts of a piece of rock, there is possibility of creating fissure cracks. But they haven't done any of that. How did they manage to do that? What is that quality of perfection? And today, this level of aesthetic sensibility is what Vaastu Shastra is all about. So you go there, you feel like celebrating, right? And that is the basis of the subject. Ramya is the basis of the subject. It should offer you delight, not make you get into anxiety and fear. Oh my God, my house is facing the wrong direction. My entrance is in the wrong location, and so on. It cannot be like that. Okay. Next one. Finally, let us move into the other aspects of Vaastu Shastra. Not only are we talking about ratios and proportions, aesthetic sensibilities, and delight, we are also saying, can I create a landscape? Can I create plants and trees which will assist me in living a harmonious life? So invariably, like in a traditional home, the garden was their Oshadashala. All their herbs came from their garden. You must have heard about that statement, no? That Annam Oshadham, which means that your food itself becomes your medicine. When you eat, what you eat, how do you balance it? What sort of herbs do you add to it? When do you take it raw? When do you cook it? When do you take it watery? When do you take it hard? And so on. All these were very well known to people. Today, everybody has forgotten. Everything is downloaded. Google is telling you how to cook and eat. Traditionally, it was not like that. My grandmother would know. Every child in the family, she knew the prakriti of that child. And she would say, it's raining, you shouldn't be eating this. She'll call that child and say, you shouldn't be eating this, because I know you will have a loose stomach. So the whole idea of Vastu Shastras was not just the built form. It was also your garden, also your empty spaces. Okay. Next one. And let us not forget, today there is so much of anger and fear and dislike of the Sanathana Dharma tradition, thinking it is backward because of the puja and the ritual. Giving up all this is considered to be modern and progressive. But the reality is, puja and ritual is nothing but a completely rhythmic and energetic understanding of my relationship with my environment. So when in fact, a couple of days ago, someone was talking to me about some of their spiritual experiences and saying, I don't know how to handle it now. I don't know how to handle my everyday life, because I've had this amazing experience of some energy moving through me, which seems to be Kundalini. So I don't know what to do. And my everyday activities become meaningless. I feel like just running away from everything. I feel futile. This attitude of human beings, when they become sensitive to the divine energies, both within themselves and in the world outside, has to be harnessed through Nitya Karma. It has to be harnessed through certain kinds of personal discipline, which is why yoga, which is why Ayurveda. The third part is puja. or any kind of bhakti orientation, where you are celebrating your relationship with life. I have been born for a purpose. How can I suddenly become, futile and meaningless? To reaffirm this purpose, reaffirm this relationship with nature, with the mother, with the divine mother, I have to sit down and celebrate her. Puja is nothing but that. You're just celebrating the mother and her bounty through earth materials. And those of you who know Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, you don't need everything. You don't need all the Shodasha Upacharam. You don't need it. Even if you just have a bowl of water, a handful of earth, and a couple of flowers, you can celebrate this divinity in your everyday life. And when you do that, when you go through your yoga practice, go through a certain strictness of diet, and you also go through this revisiting of the beauty of nature through puja and ritual, there will be a certain balance that will come into your life. There will be meaning, and you can continue to do what you have to do, irrespective of whether the world is falling apart. The Buddha says that, the final enemy is futility. So we have to learn to overcome it. And Dinacharya and Nitya Karma is the answer for that. Can you create a particular discipline for yourself, a particular sadhana for yourself, which will have all these elements, my body, my food, which means my anna, and my internal practices, meditation and puja. Okay, next. I think this was the last slide. Yeah. Okay, let me stop here.